I've spent quite a bit of time with the Honda Transalp over the last couple of years and decided to do a deep dive on the capabilities of the bike on and off-road, with the on-road installment airing 2 weeks ago. Check out that video in the top right corner. And for a mid-sized and reasonably priced, as far as these things go these days, adventure bike, I found the pavement performance of the Transalp to be extremely impressive, especially considering the rather budget suspension and the 21-inch front wheel. That thing holds on pavement and is especially impressive in the bends. But this video will focus on this motorcycle's off-road performance, which isn't quite as impressive. So is this bike a pavement star and a dirt dud? Not exactly. Rather, it's a reflection of Honda's philosophy of building bikes to the median rider at an affordable price. Should you be getting the Transalp instead of that dirt bike you've been wanting? Absolutely not. But you can do a surprising number of things on this motorcycle off-road before you bump up against its limits. So to find out how far a regular guy like me can take this thing off-road, stay tuned. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting this channel by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. Now there's a reason why Honda sells more motorcycles than any other manufacturer on the planet by far. You can be cynical and say that they make vanilla bikes for the masses, but I'd counter that they simply have better market research teams than their competitors. I've already compared the Transalp to my own Yamaha Tenere 700 and came to the conclusion that while the Honda is better on the road, the Tenere eats its lunch on dirt. Awesome. So all the hardcore adventure riders out there are going to run out and get Teneres while the Transalps languish on dealers' floors, right? Well, that's not happening for a very simple reason. Most adventure motorcycles spend 95% or more of their time on pavement, and Honda knows this. So the designers and marketing team made a calculation. For any given price, the better an adventure motorcycle is on pavement, the worse it will perform on dirt and vice versa. Of course, you can make it perform better everywhere if you throw some really nice suspension on it, but then you're into the next level price range. The Tenere and Transalp are close in price, and so sacrifices have to be made somewhere to fit into the budget. The Tenere goes for the more adjustable, longer travel suspension and superior ground clearance, while the Transalp opts for a more budget suspension and a more extensive electronics package. The Transalp is a bit lower and less top-heavy than the standard T7, and the shorter travel sharpens road handling despite its lack of adjustability. So the more off-road oriented adventurers should buy the T7, while those who venture on dirt more occasionally and prefer more electronic safety aids are better off with the Transalp. Thing is, the second group of occasional off-roaders is much larger. I'm sure that Honda has market research indicating this, which is why they designed the Transalp the way they did. Now there is value to having the more rugged bike, even if you're not taking it off-road. There are a lot of very clean Jeep Wranglers driving around, and the closest they get to off-road is a gravel road once or twice a year, terrain that a Fiat 500 can conquer. However, sometimes there's value to just knowing that a vehicle can do impressive things off-road, and Yamaha probably picks up a few Starbucks Adventurer T7 sales. But a sensible person will get the bike they need, not the one they will fantasize being Poltaris on. The Transalp is lower, a bit quicker on pavement, and has a bunch of electronics keeping the novice rider safer off-road. And it is a bit less expensive. And for most of the kinds of off-roading that its owners will do, it's perfectly fine. So I ran this bike on gravel, logging roads, light ATV trails, some difficult ATV trails, serious water crossings, and even single track. How did it do in those respects? On gravel and light dirt logging roads, it's gentle as a lamb. The Transalp has a gravel mode which runs a decent amount of traction control and really smooths out the power. This is great for the rider who is not used to going on loose surfaces, as the bike is very forgiving to ham-fisted, jerky throttle inputs. Traction control comes on early and often and makes the ride, even on very loose gravel, very undramatic. This is good and bad. Like I said, it's good for riders who are a little unsure of loose surfaces, but experienced riders who like to power slide or use the brakes to lock up the rear wheel will find the ABS and TC too restrictive. Now there is a user mode which allows the rider to pick their own ABS traction control settings, engine braking, and throttle sensitivity. Out of the factory, all of the settings in this mode are dialed in for maximum intervention, but you could turn them off if you're sufficiently advanced and confident. There's only one user mode though, so it's a choice between Pro Rally Racer or Meek as a Lamb mode. But Lamb mode is good on a 459-pound, 90 horsepower bike off-road if it saves you from whiskey throttling yourself into a tree or off a cliff. However, when the going gets rougher and you're on loose rocks and deep sand, the traction control starts to get more intrusive, and in areas where you need to apply more power and spin the rear wheel to get through, you may notice yourself bogging down. Again, a lighter setting might be preferable in some of this terrain, or you might not make much forward progress because the traction control is cutting power too much. The other issue on this terrain are the pavement-oriented tires. These are wonderful at carving the twisty roads but have very little traction in deep sand and mud. A change to a more aggressive tread would do wonders for the Transalp, but with the stock rubber, this bike squirrels around underneath you in the loose stuff. On easy ATV trails, the Transalp does well at soaking up the rocky sections and holding its line. I was a bit hesitant in the deeper mud because of the tires, but the Honda tracked through everything even when I tried crossing one particularly wet section after a 2-day downpour and underestimated how deep it was.
Holy crap! Oh my god! Oh my god.
Fortunately, it wasn't deep enough to flood the engine, and the Transalp, like most Hondas, just kept chugging along. I also hit a much more difficult ATV trail and ended up changing my mind and heading back partway in. In this case, it was not so much the bike as my nerve that gave out. It's an expensive motorcycle and it's not mine, so I really didn't want to dump it on a bunch of rocks. As I said, there had been a lot of rain, including that same day, and I just didn't have the confidence that the tires would bite in the mud. I also knew that this trail became progressively more difficult as it went on and didn't want to chance it. This is the type of trail I positively bomb on my enduro bike, but that weighs 260 pounds and has 12 inches of travel and clearance instead of the almost 500-pound accessorized Transalp, which has 7 to 8 inches. With chunkier tires, bark busters, and folding mirrors, I would have tried it, but the Transalp was not equipped this way. Finally, I did try the bike on relatively light single track last year, and it did decently in the dry conditions when the trail had traction. I found that the standing position on the Transalp, while okay, was not as comfy as on my Tenere, mostly due to the bars being too low for standing. And when I came to one particularly gnarly spot, the ground clearance left something to be desired.
Whoa! Oh, thank God it has a back plate. Oh yeah, right there. Ooh. Yeah, good thing. Make sure you put one on before you do this stuff.
So the Transalp is not a dirt bike, but you already knew that. It is a decently off-road capable adventure motorcycle with a relatively low 33.5-inch seat height and some helpful electronics. It seems more geared toward the beginner off-roader, while the Tenere 700 is more appropriate for a more experienced dirt rider who will find the traction control too intrusive. If you are contemplating adventure motorcycling but haven't spent a significant amount of time riding dirt, the Transalp may be a better choice than the T7, though in the dirt it needs chunkier tires. But that is exactly what Honda was aiming for. All the motorcycle that the median adventure rider will need without having to pay for the fancy suspension or deal with a tall seat height. $10,000 US MSRP. Call it boring or vanilla, but it works. I'd still take my Tenere 700 over the Transalp, but I'm an experienced rider who takes his ADV bike on serious terrain. Truthfully, the best of both worlds is an adventure bike for the lighter stuff and an enduro bike for the rough stuff. But if you're not too interested in the rough stuff, the Transalp hits that sweet spot of being great on pavement where most of them will spend most of their time, and being accessible and safe for the lighter off-roading that most ADV riders do. So if you have an adventure motorcycle or are thinking of getting one, how much dirt will it see? Which ADV bike fits your needs the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Adventure on, and may the spokes be with you.